I was here 3 weeks ago, and, you don't remember Carolyn Lane? And what was it we talked about 3 weeks ago? What? Credit? Okay. Mostly credit cards, yeah. We talked about credit. And do you remember some of the things that you learned? I hope you learned about using credit cards. What's one most important thing? There were 2 or 3 that we discussed, but what would you say would be one of the most important things you learned about using credit cards? Oh, that's my favorite one. Pay the bill at the end of the month. Don't ever carry a balance over. Why is that? It costs you way too much money. That's right. They charge you 20-25% interest rate somewhere in there. Just for carrying a balance over too much money. You don't want that. So use your credit cards, but use them wisely and never carry a balance. I'm so impressed that several of you remembered that. And you know, in this class, you get a reward when you answer questions. Who had the first answer on that? Great. Would you like to choose some? In fact, I need someone to be in charge of dispensing trees. Okay. Here's your check. Would this or a chair? You get the check. Good for y'all. Good for y'all. So we've got one reward treat already dispensed. Now let's see. What else did you learn from our study of credit cards? What was it? Don't overspend. That's great. You know, a friend of mine who's fairly well off said what she does on her credit card, you know, like Amazon, she'll pick out something that she wants. She puts it in her cart and leaves it there for at least a week, and then decides whether she really needs it or not. Would that be a prize? I never thought about that. That might be a pretty good answer. Who answered that question? Gets a tree. You're in charge of.
Oh, what would you like to do, Lacey? Oh, we got payday.
Kitchen.
You know what breakfast today? Chicken mix and Hershey bars. That's cool, Zay.
Thank you. Okay. What else did we learn in our last session about using credit cards? So you do want to use credit cards. It is a good idea to use credit cards. You know, we said, what were you going to say? Because you can make money using credit cards, right? How is that? They give you some points. That's for you. Some of those do. Points for using credit cards, and you can then spend those points. What were you going to say? You don't want too many credit cards that can damage your credit rating. What were you saying? I'm sorry, say that again. Yes, okay, get the good cards that don't charge you membership fees. Okay, who do I owe a treat to?
Destiny, Aubrey, hey, we're going.
Could we get that? Whoa. Okay. Was there another? Okay. All right. I'm so impressed that y'all still remember a lot of these things about using credit cards. Now, let me.
Y'all don't be eating it. Do not be eating and
Say that again.
do not eat the candy in here. Just save it for later, okay?
You know, it's okay to have more than one credit card, but you don't want to overload. don't have a bunch of credit cards because that damages your credit rating. If when you're trying to borrow money, one of these days, buy a car, buy a house, borrow money goes through, they look at your credit rating, and too many credit cards will damage your credit rating. So have a few, 2 or 3 maybe, would that be a good number? What were you gonna say?
You say something like, you show credit card and debit card?
It's what?
You show on credit card and debit card?
Oh, credit cards. What's better, credit or debit card? I never use a debit card. I don't want anybody having access to my checking account. I just use a credit card and then I pay it at the end of the month. But some people like a debit card. So if that's your thing, good enough. Y'all, today we're going to talk about investing. And the point of this lesson today is we want to make everybody have the potential of being wealthier than you are right now. Is there anybody here who's so wealthy you couldn't possibly make more money? No way. Never enough. But I gave you a list of some people who've made a whole bunch of money. And you see, some of these names are probably familiar to you, like Elon Musk. Y'all know who that is? And say Tesla and SpaceX. John, am I loud enough or not too loud?
You're good.
Jeff Bezos, and what do we know him for? So he's the one we pay all our money to. And Mark Zuckerberg, what did he do? Just a college kid who founded Facebook and made billions of dollars doing that. It says here he's worth about $173.5 billion. That's what it be, $1 billion. So 173 and 9 zeros. On down the page, you see Bill Gates and then Warren Buffett. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Warren Buffett today. He's one of my favorite examples of making money. He was not born poor, but he was not born rich either. And he made a lot of money in his life, and today is worth about $135 billion. That's it. His net worth. That's not everything he owns. That's everything he owns minus everything he owes. That's his net worth, $135 billion. But you know, the thing about Warren Buffett, I want to show you just a short clip of his advice to young people. The thing about him is that he is known as founding the giving commitment, meaning that he has himself, he has pledged to give away 99% of everything he owns when he dies. Not to the children, but rather to charitable foundations, charitable organizations, charities. For example, one effort might be healthcare in the world, healthcare in Africa, or the eradication of malaria in some parts of the world. So things that would make lives better. And then he has asked all of his fellow billionaires to sign the pledge to give away 99% of everything they own when they die. And a number of people have done that. On the other hand, a number of people have said, I don't think so. He said sometimes his friends won't take his call anymore because they're afraid he's going to ask them to pledge to give away. What do you think about that? A pledge that says, I'll give away 99% of everything I own when I die, not to my children, but to charity. What was that? His pledge would be his promise, and then he puts it in his will.
I think it's a good idea. I would say maybe not for everyone, because some people work very hard for what they got, and some people just don't want to give it away so easily.
But when you die, you're going to give it to somebody. And take it with you, So it's just a question of who you're going to give it to. You're going to give it to your kids. We don't want to leave our children raw. But how many billions of dollars do they really need? And those billions could be more. So invest it, let it create value, and then here's where it is. And give it to a lot of people. Okay, I want to show you a little bit about what Warren Buffett has to say. He's an elderly gentleman. He has some advice to give to young people as they are starting their lives and accumulating wealth. Let's see what we can hear here.
I had started investing when I was 11. I just dithered away until when I was 7 and 8 and 9. And so unfortunately, I didn't get started until I was 11. But I bought my first stock when I was 11, and then I experimented with a whole bunch of things, the timing of stocks and charting and doing all these crazy things. It was a lot of fun. Profitless, but a lot of fun. And I did that until I was 19. And I read all the books on investing in the public library, and I ate it up. It was fascinating to me, but I had no framework. I was just searching for something. I was hoping that little things on a chart would tell me something about what a stock was going to do. And it's kind of crazy, but everybody else was doing it, so I do it too. Sometimes you turn the chart upside down, it still wouldn't help. Then in 1949, I read The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham. I'd never heard of them up till then. And there are really only 2 chapters in that book that are the key to it. But they set my philosophical framework for investing in 3 ways. They're so basic and so simple, hard to understand how they could be that important, but the 10 Commandments are simple. The first is that a stock is part of a business. I mean, you can't think of a stock as something different. You value a business, and then you divide by the shares outstanding. But what you have to think about is what kind of a business are you getting into, what are its economic characteristics, who are its competitors, what's management like, all of these things that relate to a business instead of a little ticker symbol. I used to know when I was 11 or 12 the ticker symbols of every company virtually on the New York Stock Exchange. I could mark the boards that pair us up, but I didn't know anything. I knew that X was U.S. Steel and T was AT&T and so on, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know what was behind them. So I had to start looking at these little symbols or these little names in the paper as businesses and decide how do you value a business, what counts. The second thing in the book is that Graham gives you a marvelous set point in terms of how the investor should react to stock market fluctuations. He talks about his mythical Mr. Market in chapter 8. There's been no better thing written in terms of the investor's attitude toward stock prices. Most people react the wrong way to stock prices. I mean, they feel good when their stocks go up, they feel bad when they go down. They think the stock market is there to instruct them. And Mr. Market is this partner you have in investing. He's a remarkably obliging partner. This guy comes around every day and he tells you what he'll pay you for your interest in the business or what he'll sell you more at the same price. Nobody ever does that in private business. You and I owned a gas station together, and I said every day I want you to come in and offer me your half interest in the station, and I can either buy your half or sell you my half at the same price. And you have to come in every day and do it. You'd be at a terrible disadvantage. And you'd be at a particular disadvantage if you're Mr. Market in the market, because Mr. Market, our friend in the market, who obligingly gives you those figures every day, different figures at the end of the day and the start of the day, but he's naming a price at which you'll either buy or sell. The beautiful thing about him is that this guy is an alcoholic manic depressive. I mean, he is as unsound as they come. He wanders around all day, and looks at the crazy things, and he's going to name all kinds of crazy prices. And you don't have to pay any attention to them, except when it's to your advantage to do so. That's once a year.
Okay, and I'm going to stop there in the interest of saving time. But I would like to reiterate some of the things that he wanted us to take away from this short dissertation. Did you see anything that you found valuable here? Yes.
The stock market is somewhat of a friend. It's very good to show you when you don't confidence to your advantage.
Right, that's right. You can study the market. And when did he start studying the market? 11 years old. He read everything he could get his hands on, and he sort of denigrated himself by saying, I didn't do anything when I was 8, 9, 10. I didn't start till I was 11. As if that were a fault of his. He read everything he could get his hands on so that he became an expert in the way markets Mr. Buffett is not considered a financial advisor. He's already made his $135 billion in 9 zeros, but he has, he's made it himself, and he's happy to talk to young people of any age to give them advice. And this little video is on YouTube, so if you want to see the rest of it and hear the rest of the advice of somebody who's worth $135 billion, then you might want to come back to this.
Once every 5 years.
No, that's not what I want to do. No. I want to go. I did that wrong.
I got you.
After you told me 4 times. No, you're not right. All right, so we're going to look at some learning objectives in this PowerPoint. So, how to get started as an investor? What's an investment philosophy? What is it you want to accomplish? What are the risks in investing? And what are the realities of the market? And then create an investment plan. And here, I've put in red. These are things you really, really, really want to remember to do. And so, number 1 is save some every payday. When you get out of college, when you get out of school, and you get your first job, the first thing they do, the first day on the first job, is take you down to human resources where you sign all these documents. You have to sign a document that's a W-4 that says whether you're married or not, and how many dependents you have. You have to sign something that says how much health insurance you want. You sign something that says how much you want to contribute to United Way. But somewhere in those documents, you probably have to sign something that says how much do I want to put into a savings plan, a thrift plan, a stock purchase plan, a pension plan, or even better, a 401k plan. All of those are vehicles for saving. And here, watch my lips, is the best advice you're going to get today. Start immediately. When you get your first job, and they say how much you want to put into your 401k, or more likely they'll say, are you interested in putting into a savings plan, a 401k plan? And you will say resoundingly, yes, yes, from the first day. From the first day. A lot of people say, because they haven't heard this excellent advice, well, I can't do that right now. I'm going to wait till I get my student loans paid off. Or I can't do that right now. I'm going to wait till I get my house paid for. Or I'm going to wait till I get my kids out of college. Mistake. Big mistake. Always say yes. First day, start saving and put in the max. Don't say, well, I'm going to do a few dollars now, but say I'm going to do the most you can let me do, the max. One reason for that is that many companies, if you'll go work hard, they have a 401k benefit, then they'll match it to some extent. You put in $1, they put in 50 cents, or you put in $1, they put in $1. You wouldn't want to leave that money on the table, would you? Because it'll be yours one day. So always do the max, and always do it for the first day. So save a small amount every day. Now the second thing, there's a book in this library called The Millionaire Next Door. And the premise here is that a lot of people save money and become millionaires, but you wouldn't even know it because they're living below their means. They don't live in the biggest house they can possibly afford. They don't drive a new car every year. They're saving money and living below their means. Some of the wealthiest people in your neighborhood probably are living below their means. They don't spend every dime they get. They save and invest. So another good piece of advice, live within your means. Live below your means. And then invest regularly. That's it again, not just when I can afford it. You know, I'm going to put some money in savings if I have any left over. That's a bad mistake. always say, I'm gonna pay myself first. I'm gonna put some money in my savings account before I do anything else. And then risk is relative, but at a young age, you can afford to accept more risk than some of us. If your work life is 40 years, then you don't mind accepting a little risk. And what would be the advantage? There's a trade-off. The more risk, the higher the return on your investment is likely to be. You may see things go up and down over the next 40 years, but overall, they will go up. So don't be too afraid of risk. And then from time to time, rebalance your portfolio. So those are some things that you want to know before you begin investing. Of course, you want to be sure you're able to pay your bills on time, to pay off your credit card debt every day, every month, rather, you don't carry a balance. That you have an adequate emergency fund, that's got to be a priority. Typically, an emergency fund is 6 months pay. 6 months of pay. So if you're making $1,000 a month and you need $6,000 after that, you need $6,000 in your emergency fund. And what is that for? Well, if you're sick, you can't work, your income is disrupted, you'll still be able to pay your bills and buy your groceries. So an emergency fund is needed, and then line up sources of credit if possible. You know, like your credit card or your bank. You've got a CD at the bank or savings account at the bank, a loan at the bank. They know you. They know you're a good credit risk, and they're willing to lend you money under the right circumstances. Sometimes that source of additional credit might be your family members. It might be an uncle, an aunt, your parents that are able to lend you money. You don't want to do that if you can possibly avoid it, but you need to know that there is a safety net somewhere. And then make sure you've got enough insurance. I have a friend who works for an attorney, and they say that most of their bankruptcies come from medical expenses. People who did not have insurance, they have a major illness, spent some weeks or months in the hospital, and didn't have enough money to pay for it, have to go bankrupt. So they lose everything they have except staple assets like their house, one car, and work tools that they may own. Bankruptcy can be tough. So have adequate insurance to cover those adverse circumstances. Always contribute the max, as I said before, to make sure you get the employer's match amount. Sacrifice consumption today, live below your means. Now, did I make that clear? Live below your means. That is, don't spend everything you make. Save some. Live below your means. And then invest on a regular basis. Now, we're talking about some basic principles, guidelines for investing. Now, why do people save and invest? It might be take that fabulous vacation. Is there a vacation you've got in mind one of these days if you're making money, you can afford to save some? Where would you really like to go? Okay. Anybody else? Where would you really, really like to take a vacation? Yes. Yes, that'd be great. So some people are saving for vacation, maybe to buy a vacation home, they want a house on the lake, or they're saving to increase their income. That's the whole idea, isn't it? You put money in investments and then you make money back on those capital gains, dividends, and interest. That may be saving for your child's education, or you may be planning to be a business owner one of these days. I find that most of my students ultimately hope that they'll own their own business. They really would like to own their own business. They want to be their own boss. And the way you get there is by saving so that you can invest in that. And then, of course, retirement nest egg. So where do you get the money to invest? Pay yourself first plan. We've said that before. Start out from the first job, putting some money aside for yourself. if you get a raise after 3 months, 6 months, or a year, then don't increase your spending. Instead, take that raise after taxes and increase your investing savings. And invest in any money that a tax refund. People sometimes get a tax refund and they go out and spend it immediately. Far better plan is if you get a tax refund, put it in your savings or investment account. And when you pay off something, pay off your car, put that payment, that monthly payment into your savings account. Go on a budget diet for 1 month, they say. Try to spend as little as you possibly can. We're not saying starve yourself, but we're saying you buy cheaper things. You don't eat out. You don't go to the movies. You go to free things, free entertainment venues instead of things that you have to spend money for. Go on a budget diet for 1 month, see how it works out. Or, and take that money, that extra money and invest it. Or take a second job. And there's nothing wrong with having as they say, a side gig. Most professional people I know have some sort of side gig. They're doing something else to increase their wealth. So we have, what we're talking about here is increasing your savings and your investments. Savings, the accumulation of some extra money, and then investing, putting money to work. Now, how do you put it to work? How do you put money to work? Yes.
I want to say by putting it by the next time, letting it sit and letting it accumulate over time. Because once you put, I think some days if you put over $100, then you start 50, 50, 50.
Well, if you had $1,000 and you invested it in a CD paying 5%, then a year later you'd have $1,050, right? At 5%. So why not? You're putting it to work. That's $50 you didn't have to work for. It was the money earned. Or if you can invest in a stock, Walmart stock. And if you own Walmart, and if your parents own Walmart stock, you hear talk about it at the dinner table. Walmart's been an important investment lately because Walmart stock a few months ago was selling for $160 a share, $180 a share, and they split 3 for 1. So it went down to $60 a share. Is that a good thing? Well, it was because you get 200 more shares. They triple the number of shares. So if you owned 100 shares of Walmart and it's selling for $180 a share, okay? If it splits 3 for 1 and it's selling for $60 a share, but they'll give you 200 more shares, so you end up with 300 shares at $60 a share. Technically, that's exactly the same amount, but you know what's happened to Walmart shares today? It's up to $168, I think. So you paid $2,400 just because you owned shares and didn't do a thing. They just split and gave you more shares. That's called letting your investors make money for you. Yay. We want to do that, don't we? We want more of that. And the way you can do that is by spending less than you make and accumulating savings and investing. So, putting money to work in securities, for one thing, stocks, that means ownership in the company, bonds, where you have a safer investment but earning less, and a portfolio maybe is a mixture of all of those things. Long-term investment returns have a trade-off between financial risk. Your return is based on how much risk you're willing to undertake. As young people, risk doesn't scare you. If your market price goes down, you still got 40 more years to work. It'll come back up. I had a friend now, the last great recession we had in this country was 07-08. And we had a huge market crash. The market lost 40% of its value. I had a friend who came to me and said, I'm selling every stock I bought. I had $1 million and now I only have $600,000 and I really fast forward to 2024, the market, the stock market that lost 40% of its value back then is now more than double. More than double. If he had just stayed there, if he had just stayed there, he would have doubled his money most likely. So risk comes with fluctuations of value, but you've got plenty of time to recover. And you hardly ever want to sell at the bottom, do you? Unless you have some good reason to think that that market is never coming back up. It always does. The market has fluctuations, it goes up and down, and usually the ups are higher than it was before the downs. So you want to be patient. You don't want to race out and sell everything just because you're mad at the last stock report you got. You know, what we are interested in is average investments over time. Here is how they shake out. Small company stocks have a higher return on investment, averaging of better than 11%. But there's more risk with small companies. How many small companies have you known just in your lifetime who've come and gone? People start up a company, they're full of anticipation and excitement, and then a few years out, they're bankrupt. Small companies have more risk, but a higher rate of return. Large companies have less return, but less risk. Bonds have less return, but less risk. So if you want safety, you look for bonds, or even better, government bonds. U.S. government bonds have no risk. No risk. Don't sell them. I mean, if price goes down a little bit, you don't sell it. Just wait until it matures and get your money back. There's no risk in U.S. government bonds, and people all over the world buy for the opportunity to try to buy U.S. government bonds. It's the most popular investment vehicle worldwide because they believe in the United States. Treasury bills, shorter term, so lower return on investment. And then you have to worry about, here's a big risk, and that is inflation. Right now, inflation's running about 3.2%. This slide is 3.1. That's really close. Inflation erodes your buying power. So if you have $100 and the rate of inflation is 3%, then at the end of the year, technically, that'll only buy $97 worth of stuff. You've lost value because of inflation. So that's a risk proposition. You can see then why people get really upset about possibility of higher inflation. Couple more things here. You know the difference between capital gains and earnings. A capital gain means you buy something at $100 and sell it at $500. You got a $400 capital gain long term if you held it for more than a year. And tax rates are very favorable on capital gains generally. I had a client a year ago who sold $65,000 worth of timber, but he had it for a long, long time, and his tax bracket was real low, and on capital gains, long-term capital gains, he didn't pay any tax on the sale of timber. Now, if he had a job making $65,000, probably a third of it would have gone for taxes. But investing, timber, stocks, or whatever, you get favorable treatment, tax treatment on capital gains. Here is, again, to reiterate, here again, we say the important thing is start early. Start at your earliest age. Here's an illustration. If you started saving $200 a month at age 25, out of college, got a good job, only $200 a month, you won't miss that, and earn 8%, you'll have $698,000 by the time you're ready to retire. But if you say, nah, I'm going to wait until I get my house paid for, or my kids are out of college, or I'm going to wait until I'm 45 and I save the same amount, $200 a month, at 65 you only have $118,000. What does that tell us? Start early. Always start early. Start early. Start the first day on your new job, saving the maximum amount that they'll let you. Well, as I was saying, higher risk the higher risk things, we have to have we'd like to have a long plan. We'd like to have a long range opportunity for it to come back. But here are some of the highest risk things. You see at the top, future contracts, not me, ever. Call option, I don't understand enough about that. Speculative stocks, that just means they're very risky. But down near the bottom, we have some that are virtually risk-free. Savings, CDs, insured bank accounts, treasury securities. They have the lowest amount of return, but the least amount of risk. So it's just a matter of how you feel about it. At your young age, you can tolerate risk better than most of them. So you have to make up your mind, do I want to be a conservative investor or moderate or very aggressive? And then we were talking about just now and before class, should you be active or passive? Most people put their money in an investment, stock or a mutual fund, and then they just let it sit there. And the one they choose is the one their financial advisor tells them. But you might Warren Buffett, starting at like age 11 and studying the market and making your own choices. But be careful who you take advice from. You don't want your massage therapist, your physical trainer, telling you which stock to buy, do you? Maybe not even your neighbor telling you which stock to buy. You want to get that information from your own research or from a financial advisor, one that's certified to recommend and qualified to make those recommendations. Last thing I want to tell you, calculating real rate of return, and that is, say that you can invest at 10%. So, if you're in the 25% tax bracket, you're only getting 75%. You earn 10% on that, so basically 7.5%, $7.50 out of every $100 that you invest. Subtract inflation from that, and you're only getting 4.5% real rate of return. So it's what you've invested minus the tax rate that you have to pay, minus the effect of inflation. So although you may think you're making a lot of money, it's kind of a disappointment to see where the money goes. Okay, we've covered all of these. There is one video that I want to show you. Oh. Where do I go here?
I think you exited out of the window. So if you want to pull it up through your email, you
You told me not to do it. So is this up here?
can. Is that the top one? Yeah.
Is the top?
Yes. I'll see if it works.
Is that it?
That's it. I don't know if it's going to pull up.
You want me to see if it's coming? Wait or go on?
You can just go on.
Huh. There I am. So how much time do I have there? 10 minutes?
About 5, 10 minutes.
I'm not over there yet. Let me go back out and try it.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and set up. He knows a lot about all kinds of stuff. Professor Dave explains.
Most people have heard that investing is the best way to accumulate wealth. Investment is the act of redirecting resources from being consumed today so that they may create benefits in the future. More precisely, investment is the use of assets to earn income or profit. The wealthiest individuals in the world became wealthy through successful investment of their assets. Let's go over the basics regarding common ways that people invest. Stocks and bonds are two of the most common forms of investment. A stock is a representation of ownership in a public company. They can be risky to purchase as their prices can change dramatically and unpredictably, but often the bigger the risk, the bigger the potential reward. There are two ways for stockholders to make money: dividends and capital gains. Dividends are profits paid out 4 times a year to all shareholders. The size of the dividend depends on the profit of the company. Capital gains are when a stockholder simply sells their stock for more than they originally paid for it. If the stockholder made a profit, it's a capital gain. If they lost money, it's a capital loss. A market for buying and selling stock is called a stock exchange. Brokerage firms are businesses that help stockholders trade stocks and sometimes even deal out stocks. These days, anyone can easily access the stock exchange on their phone through apps that offer brokerage services. A bond is essentially an IOU issued by a corporation or by some level of government. When you buy a bond, you are loaning money in return for a guaranteed payout at a later date. Bonds are usually a more stable investment than stocks. There are 3 components of bonds: their coupon rate, maturity date, and par value amount. The coupon rate is the interest rate that a bond issuer will pay to the bondholder. The time at which payment to a bondholder is due is called the bond's maturity. A bond's par value, assigned by whoever issues the bond, is the amount to be paid to the bondholder at maturity. In order for investment to take place, an economy first must have a financial system, which is the network of structures and mechanisms that allows the transfer of money between savers and borrowers. As we learned in the previous tutorial, when people save their money, they often are actually lending funds to others. Savers and borrowers may be linked directly through what's known as financial intermediaries. Financial intermediaries are institutions that help move funds from savers to borrowers. They include banks, which we learned about in the previous tutorial, but they also include mutual funds, hedge funds, and pension funds. A mutual fund pools the savings of many individuals and invests this money in a variety of stocks, bonds, and other financial assets. A hedge fund is a private investment organization that employs risky strategies that can often make huge profits for investors. In general, these investors already have tremendous wealth and are knowledgeable about investing. A pension fund is income that some retirees receive after working a certain number of years or reaching a certain age. In some cases, injuries may also qualify a working person for certain pension benefits. Employers set up pension funds by collecting deposits, and pension fund managers then invest those deposits in stocks, bonds, and other financial assets. In general, the best way to invest your money is to put it in a diverse range of securities. This reduces risk, especially when stock or bond prices drop. Therefore, people often invest some of their money in more risky ventures, but invest the rest in more stable funds. It is also better to invest money earlier in life. This is because one of the greatest assets is time. The longer your money is invested in securities, the more it will grow. Put another way, you make more money on the money your money already makes. When investing money, it's important to consider the 2 types of interest: simple and compound. Simple interest is based on the principal amount of a loan or deposit. Compound interest is based on the principal amount and the interest that accumulates on it in every period. Thus, it can be regarded as interest on interest. Simple interest is only calculated on the principal amount of a loan or deposit. The formula looks like this. A equals P times the quantity 1 plus RT, where A is the final amount, P is the initial principal balance, R is the annual interest rate, and T is time, usually in years. Compound interest is calculated based on both the principal and interest accrued. The formula looks like this. A equals P times the quantity 1 plus R over N raised to the NT power, where A is the final amount, P is the initial principal balance, R is the interest rate, N is the number of times interest is applied per time period, usually in years, and T is the number of periods elapsed. Let's look at an example. Say you loaned $10,000 to a friend and they agreed to pay it back in 5 years with an annual simple interest rate of 5%. After 5 years, the amount of interest you would get would be $2,500, as the total amount they would repay would be $12,500, which is the original principal plus the interest. Now say you loaned $10,000 to a friend and they agreed to pay it back in 5 years with an annual compound interest rate of 5%. Because you really want to make some money, you also make sure that interest is compounded monthly, or 12 times a year. After 5 years, the amount of interest you would get would now be $2,833.59, and your friend would have repaid you a total of $12,833.59. This example serves to illustrate that compound interest is far superior to...
Okay, compound interest. So, let's see now, we still have some freaks we need to get about. Which is better, simple interest or compound interest, and why is that? It compounds monthly, that's right, interest earns interest. Thank you, thank you. Let's see now, what else would be, what is the, Al, you okay? What else would you say? What's the important thing that you learned today about investing? Start young. That lady is going far.